fear. Just woke up every morning with an incredible burning fire of fear in my stomach. And I was an addict. I'd become a full-blown addict.
Trust me, when I started using, it was fun. You know, I'm not gonna lie, it was fun. It soon became an unhappy place. It soon became something that I wanted to stop. If I could stay clean for one day, it was a big deal to me.
They found me on the floor. I had gone into cardiac arrest. I came out and the first person who I saw was my brother-in-law that was holding up an IV. I remember my whole body was just freezing cold. I couldn't move, I couldn't hear.
I had substances on me, I'd been using, I was drunk. So I got told I have to be under house arrest.
In our episode last week, we met brave characters who have managed to turn their lives around after a long battle with drug dependency. This week we continue on this thread, meeting Ursula, Andrew, Chesko and Nicole, who outline their path to recovery and a new way of life. They touch on their early years, how and when drugs enter their lives, the terrible consequences of drugs once they cross the line into addiction, and again, the turnaround and rebuilding of their lives.
My biological father was an addict. He was addicted to sleeping pills, tranquilizers, all that sort of thing. It basically got so bad that my mom decided to leave him. So I was basically fatherless. And I used that dysfunction, if you like, as an excuse for all my problems in life.
Well, basically, I grew up in a very, very small community. People looked up to us in the community. But behind closed doors, things weren't that happy. My grandfather had a drinking problem. My mom left when I was very young, and so it was me and my sister. So we were raised by my grandparents. So my grandfather would come home and be drunk and take out his frustrations on my grandmother, and we as kids would obviously suffer. I was sexually abused as a child. That was one of the main incidents in my childhood that I haven't spoken about in a long, long time.
I grew up in Johannesburg. I'm an only child, and obviously I had dominant attention from my mother especially, and we moved around a lot. You know, so I got used to packing up and not having a set place to be. I felt different, you know. I didn't feel a part of any of the friends that I had. And I always used to say it's because I'm an only child and I spend a lot of time alone. But it's more because I didn't feel a part of. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't feel like I was heard. I didn't feel understood. And I didn't want to take the time to get to know anybody else either.
My mother's Peruvian, my father's Italian. I've traveled a lot and I've had to adapt to new cultures, learn new languages, meet new people, leave old people. And I've lived that, you know, most of my life until recently when I moved to South Africa. I felt out of place, the outcast.
The more studies they do about the biological nature, the genetic nature of dependencies, the more they see how extremely important the social and the psychological part is.
I remember I had my first drink actually at the age of 13, and it was a glass of wine. It's a religious ritual. And I proceeded in this big hall, this communal hall, to go around and find every single glass of half wine that the others had not drunk, and got pissed, drunk, out my mind. That was the answer. The answer for all that insecurity, all that worrying about what people think, disappeared, and I laughed, and I felt free, and I felt confident, and it opened a door.
At the age of 11, I discovered a thing called Thins, which has a lot of ephedrine in it, and that made me more awake, feel on top of the world, that foster feeling. And when I was in the water, it gave me extreme amounts of energy, and so that became like my tool. And what I also found with that is that I was losing weight. And that's when my drug use started.
I was 11 years old. My grandfather used to drink this sort of, I think it was red wine. I'm not sure what they called it back then. But me and my sister used to sneak into his liquor cabinet and pour half of the alcohol out and then fill the bottles with water. And we would get so drunk, you know. I remember my first time being drunk. I remember that because it was this sort of feeling of that everything was well in the world, you know. No matter what happened to me right now, I'll be okay. You know, I loved that feeling.
And at the age of 17, I decided to investigate what this marijuana grass was. And I did it in a very independent way. I went and I found some person who had it. And I went and I smoked it all by myself to see what this was really about. After I smoked the first joint, I was hooked, because from then on in, I was smoking it every day.
When I was about 16, we started going out a bit, and it was girls, and it was starting to smoke cigarettes and drinking and getting into clubs underage. I just wanted to fit in, and I just wanted to have fun, and I felt I deserved it. I had a ball. It ended up speeding up. At that time, I also started using other substances. Dagga, as we call it in South Africa, marijuana, weed. I believed that I'd opened a door to greater consciousness. Actually, all I really wanted to do was not feel myself and not feel normal because it was too painful. That drug became my God, and I ended up using it every day, more than once a day. And I could not be without it. One time at work, I was very stressed, and I had a headache. And someone said, well, take 2 of these. And I took 2 of these. And in these, lo and behold, I didn't know, was codeine. And not only did the headache go away, but I felt a sense of calm. If I woke up with a hangover and I took 6 of these, I would not have a stomach pain in the morning, I would not have the headache. It became more and more and more, and I was taking ridiculous amounts of these tablets, and I discovered a different brand with pseudoephedrine, which actually kept me awake. Years later, I was taking 60 of these tablets a day. That became my stable drug of choice throughout my journey in addiction.
At 13, I tasted my mom's drinks prior to that, and I enjoyed the taste. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the feeling it gave me. Smoked my first joint at about the same age, and that feeling was also nice. I started smoking more regularly. I got involved with a guy, and we smoked all the time, and he introduced me to my drug of choice, and I liked it. That sense of I can accomplish anything.
Weed was what I smoked from a very young age. It was a kind of a feeling where whenever I smoked it, nothing else mattered. I was just on top of the world. It just made me feel like I was important. When I didn't have it, that's when the worries kicked in. Alcohol was always a part of it. Of course, I didn't think I had a drinking problem. You know, even though I passed out, I couldn't remember most of the time what I did. And then there was cocaine at some point in my life. That was an expensive habit. For 3 years, it was diet tablets, friends, parties, drinking, drugs, passing out and not knowing how I got there. Then I started using really, really hard drugs. But then I started becoming selfish. Now I want to use alone. When there were nights that I would lie awake and not being able to sleep for like 7 days on one, not eat for like 7 to 8 days on one, and still go to work, still drive myself to work. The crystal meth was something that I could easily get, but it brought me to my knees.
I experimented with marijuana, I experimented with hallucinogenics such as magic mushrooms and LSD. The alcohol subsided a little bit, and I focused on cannabis and cocaine. And I spent the next 18 months nurturing my cocaine habit. I remember traveling within Peru on airplanes, carrying large quantities of cocaine with me because I couldn't even go without using. And I also engaged in distribution of drugs to support my own habit. To the point where I was sleeping during the day and I was awake at night. In room, windows closed, drapes closed, just drugs everywhere, doors locked, and just a full-on using regime.
Often the person might not even drink socially anymore. They might drink in isolation, or they might use the drugs in isolation. It's sometimes not even being used for making them feel good anymore. It's just being done because they need it so desperately, and they might have withdrawal symptoms when they don't have it.
It started affecting my life very negatively. I never had any real healthy, loving, romantic relationships. I've been married and divorced. And the hurts I've caused myself and my family, and those close to me, my ex-wife, friends, the odd girlfriends, I've stunted my growth. I felt like a boy most of my life. I just lost the plot.
If my mom asks me to go to a shop on a Wednesday night, then she'll see me the following week on Wednesday. And then the lying started. And the stealing started, because then I started running out of money, or I'd go and visit my mother and take from her money. It was a crazy game I was playing, but I thought I was in control. And the isolation came in, where I was on my own. I was unhappy, I was miserable. I cried all the time.
Got involved with dealers, started dealing, started trafficking drugs. As much as I was earning, I was using more and owing dealers money, and then, you know, finding other ways and means and manipulating and stealing to pay off what I was using.
The money that I was spending on cocaine exceeded the money that the restaurant was making. All the cash ups that I was doing at the end of the day was being depleted into supporting my habit. That resulted in a very untrustworthy relationship with my family because of the lies, the stealing, the manipulating that was involved. To the point where my wife said, "I can't have this anymore." She actually called the police one night, and I was asked to be removed from the premises. And I had burnt all of my bridges with my family. It just was a spiral downwards. You know, just nosedive.
When you reach the point of addiction, it's recognized by repetitive and compulsive substance use, usually, even despite horrendous and significantly negative consequences for the person, and an inability to really control that.
Well, addiction is a human condition affecting many people, not just those who have it. And it's characterized by behavior that is harmful to the individual and others and society, that the person is not able to sustainably quit or modify on their own.
I've heard a lot of people say rock bottom. To me, I think mine was more of an emotional meltdown, you know. It wasn't the amount of drugs I was using. It was just the unhappiness, the unsettling feeling of, who are you? You know, why are you doing this? Why are you destroying people that you claim to love? You know, people that used to say to you, I love you, is now saying, I want you out of my life. I'll never forget the night where I was on my bathroom floor on my knees, and I was crying and begging and saying, you know, God, if this is what you had planned for me, then I don't want this anymore. Then take me, because I don't want to live this way anymore.
And I got caught, you know, I got caught. I was about to go overseas to do a drug run, and my mom had put a missing persons report for me, you know, and I went home to go and get new clothes because I was about to go back and do my thing, and the cops were waiting at my house. And I sat in a police station with the superintendent of the narcotics unit, and he said to me, you know, you've got two choices. There's a jail cell waiting for you, or you can talk, you know. And I chose to speak. I had substances on me, I'd been using, I was drunk, and there were, you know, it was said that I have to go into treatment.
Suicide was becoming a possibility because life just became unbearable. I hit a financial rock bottom, divorce, was kicked out of our home, had to find myself a place, lost my job, all at once.
I had bought some drugs from my dealer that wasn't the drug that I had ordered. I found myself in my office, curtains drawn, doors locked, middle of the night, mountains of drugs all around me, no one inside, and I used the heroin as if it was cocaine. And it was lights out after that. I had gone into cardiac arrest. I came out, and the first person who I saw was my brother-in-law that was holding up an IV. The lights would dim, you know, and then they would brighten up again. And I had this immense fear that when it was dimming, that was it for me, you know, lights out for good.
I got on a plane and I flew down to Cape Town, and I came into a rehab. I thought, 28 days, you know, the movie related. I'm going to be in for 28 days and then I'm going to go out and I'm going to use successfully because they're going to teach me how to do all these things. It was hard. I embarked on a journey to deal with my past so that I can be comfortable in my present.
One of the things that helped me is I knew that I've got people, same as me, that I can constantly connect with, socialize with, talk about recovery, talk about addiction, talk about things that we need to do in our lives to stay clean and to stay sober. If it's an SMS or an email or a quick call or taking a call, these things help my mind to calm down.
Then I ended up going to rehab. From saying that prayer, from praying every day and asking for help, to me getting to be sponsored for 3 months on an inpatient program. You know, and that's where I learned what addiction is and this disease of addiction that I have. I didn't know any of these things. The 12 steps came in, but basically from the start. You know, they started explaining to us what this 12 steps is, that you live by these principles, basic principles of these 12 steps, and explaining to you that you're powerless, you know, and that you need to sort of believe in something greater than yourself. And I thought that I'm going to have to be this person that walks around with a Bible all day. But it's not like that at all, you know. It's just, for me, it just took me to believe that there is a power greater than me. Because when I was in control, everything was a mess.
Words imprison things. And we start using the word as a box, and the word God has become a sort of box, but you can't. You know, for me, God, I can't define God, but I can experience what I believe to be God.
I connected with God, the God of my understanding, in a spiritual sense. And that for me is just opening my ears, you know, and listening to messages. There were small episodes in the treatment center that I was in that began that process of believing. But there is a prayer that they had taught us there called the Serenity Prayer. And I just started repeating this prayer over and over and over again. And I just laid on my bed with my eyes closed, saying this prayer. And then next thing I know, it was gone. This clutter in my head was lifted.
The 12-step program has helped so many people all over the world, no matter what addiction or dependency.
Going to work every single day and not phoning in ill just because I don't feel like facing the day or it's raining outside, that's different for me. I take care of myself now, you know. I watch what I eat. I make sure that I eat 3 healthy meals a day. I bath every day. That's a change. And that I can listen to somebody, that's a change. Then I'm open-minded to new ideas and new ways of doing things. That's a change. Gratitude, oh my word, every day that I wake up and I remember what I did the day before, and I wake up without a headache, and I wake up not wanting something, you know, wow, it's going to be a great day. Doesn't matter what I go through during the day.
My heart's in what I'm doing in this. In January it will be 3 years that I've been, I wouldn't even say back in recovery, I would say back in new recovery. I think one of the greatest gifts of my recovery today is that I am able to have healthy relationships. I realize people are are all important in this life, and I found true love with somebody who has a young child, and I believe that there are many challenges and many more gifts to come.
Almost 5 years down the line, I continue with that knowledge that I'm an addict, okay, and that a drink and a drug will kill me, and just the openness around the fact that I need to own my decision making. Today it's more other decision making on how have I taught my sons well or unwell, how have I reacted to that person based on how I'm feeling, you know, like it's more real behavior issues, but I'm able to own my part and I'm able to then grow from that.
I stopped lying. I told the truth, which was something that I haven't done in so long. There's actually hope. There's light, literally a light at the end of the tunnel. That you can live a drug-free life and be happy. There's open-mindedness, willingness, you know. I was willing to do anything to get my drugs. I'm willing to do anything to stay clean. That means phoning somebody. If that means getting on my knees and praying, then that is what I'll do.
So if we live badly, we get wounded, our wound affects our spirituality. If we don't heal the wounds in our spirituality, we can't then come to a place of living holy with a wounded spirituality.
I want to be the best possible partner to my lover, father to she's not my child, but it's as if she is my child, son to my parents, service provider to my clients, friend to my friends, a helpful recovering addict to others who might need it. That's my highest aspiration.
I want to stay clean, you know. I want to study further. I want to have my family with me on a permanent basis. I want to have a meaningful, understanding, compassionate, respectful relationship with the person in my life. It's that simple.
I'd like to believe that the work that I do, yeah, be it the addiction counselor that I am, be it the private counselor that I am, be it the business owner that I am, in whatever form it is, my hope and my ambition is to be able to affect as many people as possible with a positive outcome.
I try and live life one day at a time. You know, I try not to plan things too far ahead. That I'm going to own this great house in the next 5 years. I'm going to be a manager of a company in the next 10 years. You know, those are things that I would like to do, but I don't focus all my energy on it, you know. If that's in my sort of path for my life, then it will happen. But I can't plan so far ahead that I forget what I'm doing right now.
The advice that I would give them is have an open mind and listen. It's a fundamental skill that I picked up in my process, is listening.
The greatest advice I can give is get honest with people that matter and ask them for help.
Ask for help. You know, reach out for help. If you feel that you can't do this on your own, ask for help, because help is out there. But nobody's going to find you unless you reach out and say, I need help.
Get help as soon as possible. There's a whole variety of services available. Go see a doctor, go see a social worker. These are people who would know where treatment services within the area where you live are. Phone a helpline. Do whatever you need to do, but don't ignore the problem. Get help, and get help early on.
Get help. Get into a 12-step program. Respect and love yourself enough to turn things around for your life. You know, there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Next week, we deviate somewhat, looking at the process addiction of overeating. This particular addiction is often overlooked and misunderstood. Our selected characters shed light on the nature of the illness and the long, arduous paths they took to gain a healthy relationship with food and maintain a stable recovery. Our hope is that after watching these programs, anyone affected by the consequences of addiction, be it the addict themselves, family members, friends, work colleagues and communities at large, will better understand addiction and be able to make informed decisions regarding seeking help, advice, counseling, and support.